Buckle up for a heartwarming tale of love defying all odds. When Zoe, a hard-working waitress with flowing, wavy hair, accidentally crashes her old Honda into the sleek Maserati of Thomas, a dashing billionaire, their worlds collide in ways neither expects. From rainy streets to cozy diners, their journey weaves through challenges, tabloid scandals, clashing lifestyles, and personal fears. Can a fender-bender spark a forever romance, or will their differences pull them apart? Stick around to find out if love truly conquers all. If you're loving this story, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below. Where in the world are you listening from? Share to spread the love. Will Zoe and Thomas bridge their worlds? You won't want to miss the twists that reveal their fate. Rain lashed against the windshield of Zoe's battered Honda, blurring the city lights into a kaleidoscope of colors. At 25, Zoe was a vision of resilience. Her slender frame hunched over the steering wheel, her long, wavy hair cascading over her shoulders, damp from the downpour. Her heart raced, not just from the storm, but from the ticking clock. She was late for her second shift at the Golden Spoon Diner, and her boss, Lucy, had a 3 strikes policy. One more tardy, and Zoe's job was toast. With her father's mounting medical bills, heart medication wasn't cheap. She couldn't afford to lose this gig. "Come on," she muttered, tapping the wheel, her green eyes squinting through the deluge. The traffic light mocked her, staying red as if savoring her panic. When it finally flicked green, Zoe pressed the gas pedal too hard. The tires squealed, skidding on the slick asphalt. She turned the corner, her hands gripping the wheel, but the car fishtailed. Time slowed as her bumper met the rear of a sleek, black Maserati with a sickening crunch. "No, no, no!" Zoe whispered, her stomach plummeting. She pulled over, her hands trembling as she killed the engine. Through the rearview mirror, she saw the other driver step out, tall, broad-shouldered, his tailored suit pristine despite the rain. He moved with a purpose that screamed wealth, his dark hair glistening under the streetlights. Zoe forced herself out of the car, the rain soaking her diner uniform instantly. Her hair clung to her face, framing her delicate features as she approached the man inspecting his car. Up close, the Maserati gleamed like a polished jewel, its dented rear panel a glaring insult. "I'm so sorry," she called, her voice barely audible over the storm. The man turned, and Zoe's breath caught. His chiseled jaw and piercing gray eyes were unmistakable. Thomas Knight, the billionaire tech mogul, was 30 years old and a fixture in every business magazine she'd flipped through at the doctor's office. His sophistication was undeniable, even as rain began to speckle his suit. "I don't have time for this," Thomas said, his voice clipped, running a hand through his hair. His gaze flicked over the damage, then landed on Zoe. She braced for anger, her heart pounding. "I'm really sorry," she repeated, water dripping down her cheeks. "I have insurance, but—" Her voice faltered. Her policy's deductible was a fortune she didn't have. Thomas studied her, taking in her soaked uniform, the exhaustion etched under her eyes, the silver ring she twisted nervously on her finger. His expression softened, almost imperceptibly. "Buy me a coffee and we'll call it even," he said, gesturing to a cafe across the street. Zoe blinked, stunned. What? The dent in his car was worth thousands, and he was settling for a $4 latte? Thomas shrugged, a faint smirk playing on his lips. "It's just a car." 10 minutes later, they sat in the cozy cafe, steam rising from their cups. Zoe, her hair now a damp cascade, felt out of place across from Thomas, whose suit jacket hung casually over the chair, revealing a crisp white shirt that hugged his athletic frame. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, her voice steady despite her nerves. Thomas sipped his espresso, his eyes locking onto hers. "You looked like you were having a worse day than I was." Zoe couldn't help herself. "That doesn't sound like the kind of decision that made you a billionaire." To her surprise, Thomas laughed, a rich sound that warmed the air. "You know who I am," he observed, leaning back. "Anyone who stood in a grocery line knows you," Zoe shot back, her lips twitching. "And you're not impressed?" he asked, his tone teasing but curious. Zoe shrugged. "Money doesn't make someone impressive." A spark flickered in Thomas's gray eyes, as if she'd just thrown down a challenge. "What's your name?" he asked. "Zoe Moore." He nodded, as if filing it away. "So, Zoe Moore, you're working 2 jobs?" He gestured to her uniform. She glanced at her watch, realizing she was dangerously late. "Receptionist at a medical clinic mornings, waitress afternoons and evenings. And I'm about to be fired if I don't get to work." Thomas raised an eyebrow. "I can call your boss." Zoe shook her head firmly. "No thanks, I don't need favors." His interest deepened. Most people begged for his influence. Yet, here she was, pushing it away. "Let me drive you then," he offered. Zoe hesitated, then nodded, too frazzled to argue. In his Maserati, the leather interior smelled of luxury, a stark contrast to her damp uniform. She felt like an intruder, her slender fingers clutching her bag. "Golden Spoon Diner on Maple," she directed. Thomas stole glances at her as he drove, his curiosity palpable. "What?" she asked, catching his eye. "You're not what I expected when I got out of my car," he said, his voice softer. "A disaster who can't afford to fix your Maserati?" Zoe quipped. His mouth twitched. "An honest person. Those are rare in my world." They pulled up to the diner, its neon sign flickering in the rain. Zoe reached for the door. "Thanks for the ride. And for not suing me." Thomas's hand paused on the gear shift. "Have dinner with me tonight." Zoe stared, incredulous. "You're joking." "I'm not," he said, his smile transforming his serious face. "Why would you want dinner with me? I just crashed your car." "Maybe that's exactly why," Thomas replied, his tone light, but his eyes intense. "You're the first interesting thing that's happened to me all week." Zoe shook her head, a wry smile breaking through. "I work till 11. "I'll pick you up at 11 then," he countered smoothly. "Mr. Knight." "Thomas," he corrected. "People like you don't date people like me," she said, her voice firm. He handed her a business card, scribbling his personal number on the back. "Let me decide who I date. Text me if you change your mind." His confidence was maddening, yet magnetic. Zoe took the card, her fingers brushing his, and stepped into the rain. Inside the diner, Lucy was livid. 20 minutes late, Zoe." Zoe tied on her apron, her hair still damp. "I had a car accident, Lucy." "I'm fine, the car's drivable." Lucy's anger softened. "Who dropped you off? That car is worth more than this place." Zoe dodged the question, her mind replaying Thomas's smile, his card burning a hole in her pocket. As she took orders, she couldn't shake the feeling that her life had just veered onto an uncharted road, one where a billionaire's interest might be more dangerous than any storm. The Golden Spoon Diner buzzed with the clatter of plates and the hum of late evening chatter. But Zoe's mind was elsewhere. At 25, her beauty shone even under the diner's fluorescent lights, her slender frame darting between tables. Her long, wavy hair swept into a high ponytail that framed her delicate features. Her shift had barely begun, and already her feet ached, a reminder of the double life she led. Mornings at the medical clinic, evenings here, all to keep her father's heart medication stocked. Thomas's business card, tucked in her apron pocket, felt like a live wire, its weight both thrilling and unsettling. His dinner invitation, absurd, impossible, lingered like a melody she couldn't shake. She delivered a plate of fries to table 6, forcing a smile, when the bell above the door jingled. Zoe glanced up and froze. Thomas Knight strode in, no longer in his rain-soaked suit, but in dark jeans and a simple button-down shirt that somehow screamed expense. At 30, his handsome features and sophisticated air turned heads. Even in casual attire, he carried the effortless confidence of a man who owned boardrooms. He slid into a booth in her section, his gray eyes locking onto her with a disarming intensity. Zoe's pulse quickened. What was he doing here? She approached, clutching her order pad like a shield. "What are you doing here?" she hissed, keeping her voice low. Thomas leaned back, a faint smirk playing on his lips. "Having dinner. This is a diner, right?" Zoe glanced around, noticing curious stares from other patrons. "You can't be here," she said, struggling for a reason. "People like you eat at five-star restaurants, not diners with sticky menus." He picked up a menu, unfazed. "I like comfort food. What's good?" Zoe sighed, realizing he wasn't leaving. "Meatloaf's decent. Apple pie's better." "I'll have both," he said, his smile softening the air between them. As she scribbled his order, Zoe felt his gaze, not predatory but curious, as if she were a puzzle he was determined to solve. She turned away, her cheeks warming, and busied herself with other tables. Yet every time she passed his booth, she sensed his attention, steady and unyielding. It unnerved her. Men like Thomas didn't linger in places like this, didn't look at women like her with such genuine interest. Or did they? Her instincts warred. Was he intrigued, or was this a game? When she brought his food, Thomas set down his phone, where he'd been jotting notes. "Tell me about yourself, Zoe Moore," he said, his voice low, inviting. She refilled his water glass, dodging the question. "Not much to tell. I have other tables." He didn't push, but his eyes followed her as she worked, noting how she remembered every customer's name, how she slipped an extra napkin to an elderly man struggling with his fork. Zoe was a whirlwind of care, and Thomas, used to a world of calculated transactions, found it mesmerizing. The diner began to empty around 10, leaving Thomas nursing a coffee, still in her section. Lucy, her boss, sidled up to Zoe at the counter, peering at him. "Who's that guy? Been here for hours," Zoe shrugged. "Just a customer." Lucy's eyes narrowed. "He looks familiar. Wait, is that Thomas Knight? The billionaire?" Zoe hushed her. "Please don't make a scene," Lucy grinned. "What's he doing eating meatloaf in my diner?" Zoe didn't answer, her mind racing. Why was he still here? What did he want? When she brought his check, Thomas finally spoke again. "So, about that dinner," Zoe gestured to his empty plate. "This wasn't dinner," he chuckled. "This was research. The meatloaf's good, pie's excellent. Now I know you have taste." She shook her head, half amused, half exasperated. "I told you, I'm not going to dinner with you." "Why not?" he pressed, leaning forward. "Because we're from different worlds. Because this doesn't make sense. Because tomorrow you'll regret asking the waitress out." His expression grew serious. "I never regret my decision, Zoe, and I'm very interested in what happens when our worlds collide." Before she could respond, the diner door burst open. A disheveled man in his 60s stumbled in, his eyes frantic until they found Zoe. "Dad!" she exclaimed, rushing to him. "What are you doing here? You're supposed to be resting." Her father's voice was slurred from medication. "You didn't answer your phone. Mrs. Jenkins said you had an accident. I got worried." Zoe's heart sank. She guided him to a seat, her arm around his frail frame. "I'm fine, Dad. Let me get you water." Thomas watched from his booth, noting the tenderness in Zoe's movements, the worry creasing her brow. When she returned to his table, her cheeks were flushed with embarrassment. "Sorry about that. My dad. He has heart problems. He worries." Thomas's voice was gentle. "No need to apologize. Family's important." Zoe nodded, surprised by his understanding. "I need to get him home. My shift's almost over." Thomas stood, his height commanding yet unthreatening. "Let me drive you both." Zoe started to protest, but her father's tired eyes changed her mind. "Okay, thank you." 20 minutes later, Thomas's Maserati pulled up to a modest apartment building. He insisted on helping, carrying her father's grocery bags inside. The apartment was small, lived in, with family photos on the walls. Zoe graduating from high school, her father in a factory uniform, a woman who must have been her mother. "Nice place," Thomas said, setting the bags down. Zoe gave him a look. "No, it's not. But it's what we can afford." He wandered to the photos, his gaze lingering on the image of Zoe's mother. "She passed 5 years ago," Zoe said quietly. "Cancer. That's when Dad's heart got worse." Thomas turned to her, his sophisticated air softened by empathy. "You've been taking care of him since?" She nodded. "He took care of me my whole life. It's my turn." For a moment, silence hung between them, heavy with unspoken respect. Thomas broke it. "Have coffee with me tomorrow. Not dinner, just coffee." Zoe's fatigue was evident, but his persistence stirred something in her. "Why are you so determined?" she asked. "Because I know what I want when I see it," he said simply, stepping closer. "And I want to know the woman who crashed into my life today." Zoe looked into his gray eyes, caught between caution and curiosity. Against her better judgment, she nodded. "One coffee, that's it." Thomas's smile was genuine, lighting up his handsome face. "That's all I'm asking, for now." As he left, Zoe stood by the window, watching his car disappear into the night. Her fingers traced the business card in her pocket, her heart whispering that this encounter, however unlikely, might just change everything. Zoe stood before her cracked bedroom mirror, smoothing the simple blue blouse that hugged her slender frame. At 25, her beauty was effortless, her long, wavy hair falling in soft cascades over her shoulders, catching the afternoon light. She'd swapped her work scrubs for her best jeans, a rare moment of care for her appearance. Her father's words echoed as she left their modest apartment. "He thinks my daughter's something special." Zoe wasn't so sure. Coffee with Thomas Knight, the billionaire whose Maserati she'd dented, felt like stepping into a world she didn't belong to. Yet, his persistence, the way his gray eyes had held hers last night, had stirred a curiosity she couldn't ignore. The cafe Thomas had chosen sat in an upscale district, its glass facade reflecting sleek cars and well-dressed patrons. Zoe's steps faltered as she approached, her sneakers a stark contrast to the polished heels clicking past. Inside, Thomas waited at a corner table, his sophisticated air undeniable in a tailored gray suit that accentuated his athletic build. At 30, he was every inch the handsome mogul. But his face softened when he saw her, a warm smile breaking through his usual intensity. He stood, closing his laptop with a decisive snap. "I was starting to think you might not come," he said, his voice low, teasing. "I said I would," Zoe replied, sliding into the seat across from him, her wavy hair brushing her cheek. "I keep my promises." Thomas's eyes flickered with approval. "A rare quality." He signaled the waiter, and Zoe ordered a regular coffee, feeling the weight of the luxurious setting. Thomas opted for an espresso, his movements precise, practiced. An awkward silence settled, the clink of porcelain the only sound. Zoe broke it, her green eyes meeting his. "This is weird, right?" Thomas laughed, the sound rich and disarming, easing the tension. "Completely weird. But sometimes, weird is good." Zoe raised an eyebrow. "Is it? Because this feels like the start of a cautionary tale." His expression grew serious. "What kind? The one where the rich guy slums it with the working class girl before returning to his real life?" Zoe's breath caught. He'd voiced her exact fear. She shrugged, stirring her coffee. "I don't know what's happening here. That's why I came, to figure it out." Thomas leaned forward, his gaze steady. I've been thinking about why I asked you here. It's not boredom or some thrill. You're real, Zoe. In my world, everyone wants something. Investors, employees, women. You don't. Zoe's skepticism surfaced. And I don't want your help either. Not with my boss, not with my life. He nodded, conceding. Maybe it's pride, but it's refreshing. Zoe's lips twitched, but she didn't smile. Pride was her armor, and she wasn't ready to shed it. As their coffees arrived, the conversation shifted. Zoe spoke haltingly of her dream to become a nurse, abandoned when her mother's cancer drained their savings. I wanted to help people, make a difference when they're at their most vulnerable, she said, her voice softening. Not glamorous, I know. Thomas's eyes held hers. On the contrary, it's admirable. He shared glimpses of his own world, building his tech empire from a college idea, the thrill of innovation. His passion was palpable, and Zoe found herself listening, drawn to the man beneath the wealth. The cafe grew busier, patrons stealing glances at Thomas, some recognizing the famous entrepreneur. Zoe felt their eyes, her discomfort growing. She was an outsider here, her blouse and jeans a silent confession of her place in the world. Thomas noticed her unease. What's wrong? He asked, his voice gentle. Zoe hesitated. I feel like I'm playing dress-up in someone else's life. He frowned, then leaned back. Then let's get out of here. Somewhere you're comfortable. She shook her head. It's not the place, it's all of this. You, me, this gap between us. Thomas's phone buzzed, but he silenced it, his focus unwavering. That gap doesn't scare me, Zoe. His sincerity disarmed her, and when he asked about her childhood, she surprised herself by sharing her father's factory job, her mother's love of books, the community center where she volunteered. Thomas listened, his questions thoughtful, his interest genuine. Zoe's guard lowered just a fraction. Their coffee stretched into a second cup, the afternoon slipping away. Thomas's phone buzzed again, and this time he glanced at it, his shoulders tensing. Problem? Zoe asked. Nothing I can't handle, he said. But she saw the shift in him, the CEO resurfacing. You should go, she said, standing. I've taken enough of your time. He hesitated, torn. I'd rather stay. Zoe teased. The business world doesn't stop for coffee. He smiled reluctantly. True, but I want to see you again. Why? The question slipped out, raw and unguarded. Thomas reached across the table, his fingers brushing hers, sending a jolt through her. Because for the first time in months, I've enjoyed a conversation that wasn't about profit margins. His touch lingered, and Zoe's heart raced. Have dinner with me tonight, he said. A real dinner, not diner meatloaf. Against her better judgment, she nodded. Okay, 7 o'clock. As they parted outside the cafe, Thomas's driver waiting nearby, Zoe felt the weight of his world pressing in. She walked home, her wavy hair catching the breeze, her mind a storm of doubt and possibility. Dinner with Thomas Knight wasn't just a date. It was a leap into the unknown. Back at her apartment, her father noticed her flushed cheeks. Good coffee? He asked, his eyes twinkling. Zoe smiled faintly. Complicated. She glanced at Thomas's business card on her nightstand. Its handwritten number, a quiet promise. Tonight, she'd step into his world, but a voice inside warned her. Could she ever truly belong there? Zoe's small apartment was a sanctuary of quiet that evening, but her heart was anything but calm. At 25, her beauty was undimmed even in the dim light, her slender frame curled on the couch, her long, wavy hair spilling over a throw blanket. The memory of dinner with Thomas Knight lingered. The intimate corner table, the city lights, his sophisticated charm in a tailored navy suit that made her simple black dress feel like a costume. His questions about her dreams, her father's struggles, had drawn her in, but the opulence of his world had left her reeling. She'd agreed to see him again, yet doubt gnawed at her. Could a waitress and a billionaire bridge such a chasm? Her phone buzzed, shattering the stillness. It was Lucy from the diner, her voice urgent. "Zoe, have you seen the news?" Zoe's stomach twisted. "What news?" Lucy hesitated. "Check online." "I'm sorry, honey." Zoe grabbed her laptop, her fingers trembling as she opened a tabloid site. The headline screamed, "Billionaire's charity case. Waitress snags night fortune." Below it, a grainy photo captured her and Thomas kissing outside her apartment, her wavy hair unmistakable. Another showed them at the cafe, his hand on hers. The article sneered at her troubled past, dropping out of nursing school, her father's debts. As if they were scandals, comments flooded in, vicious and mocking. "Gold digger alert. She's playing him." Zoe's breath caught, her face burning. She sank onto the couch, the laptop sliding to the floor. Her phone lit up with notifications. Friend requests, messages, strangers digging into her old social media posts. The world had invaded her life, turning a private moment into a public spectacle. Her father shuffled in, concern etching his weathered face. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" Wordlessly, she handed him the phone, Lucy still sending links. He scrolled, his jaw tightening. "These vultures," he muttered, returning the device. Zoe's phone rang, an unknown number. She rejected it, but another call followed, then another. "They're getting my number," she whispered, horrified. "How?" A sharp knock at the door startled her. Her father answered, revealing Thomas, his handsome features strained, his dark coat speckled with rain. At 30, his sophistication was a stark contrast to the cramped apartment, but his gray eyes were fixed on Zoe. "Is she okay?" he asked her father, who stepped aside. Thomas crossed the room, kneeling before Zoe, who remained frozen on the couch, her hair a tangled curtain around her pale face. "Zoe, I'm so sorry," he said, his voice thick with guilt. "I should have anticipated this. My PR team's working to shut it down." "Shut what down?" Zoe's voice was quiet, sharp. "The truth? We're dating. I'm a waitress, you're a billionaire." She gestured to her phone, notifications piling up. "They're tearing my life apart." Thomas ran a hand through his hair, his composure fraying. "They're twisting it, making you out to be something you're not. After my money or me slumming it." Zoe flinched at the phrase. Her worst fear echoed in print. "Aren't those my doubts from the start? That this can't work because we're too different?" Thomas took her hands, his touch warm but desperate. "Don't let them get in your head. What we have is real." Zoe pulled away, standing, her slender frame trembling. "Look at this," she said, thrusting her phone at him. Dozens of messages flashed. Some cruel, some curious, all invasive. "They're digging through my entire life. My high school photos, my mom's obituary." Thomas's expression darkened. "I'll have my security team lock down your accounts. Change your number." "Don't you see?" Zoe interrupted, her voice rising. "Your solution is always money, resources. You can't buy privacy once it's gone. You can't buy normal." Thomas stood, frustration creeping into his tone. "What do you want me to do, Zoe? Let them harass you?" She paced, her hair swaying with each step. "I want to go back to before this started, before I believed we could work." Thomas looked stricken. "Before we met?" Zoe's eyes glistened. "Before I let myself hope." Her father cleared his throat, retreating to his room. "I'll give you privacy." Alone, Thomas tried again, his voice softer. "Zoe, please, let me fix this." She shook her head, tears threatening. "You can't fix this with power or influence. Every problem we face comes back to your world, one I don't belong in." The words cut deep, and Thomas sat heavily on the couch, his sophistication at odds with the worn furniture. "So, that's it. You're giving up because of some photos." Zoe sat beside him, leaving space, her voice breaking. "It's not just photos, it's the reality check. I got caught up in a fantasy, thinking I could fit in your life or you in mine." Thomas's jaw tightened. "It wasn't a fantasy. What I feel for you is real." She met his gaze, her green eyes raw. "I believe you, but feelings aren't always enough. Timing, circumstances, they matter." Her phone rang again. The clinic's number this time. Zoe answered, her heart sinking as Dr. Williams spoke formally. "We've had reporters calling. The clinic can't handle this attention. We think a leave of absence is best." Zoe closed her eyes. "You're firing me." A pause. "Until this resolves." She hung up, her voice flat. "They're putting me on leave. I'm losing my job because of us." Thomas's fists clenched. "I'll talk to them." Zoe's eyes flashed. "That'll make it worse." She buried her face in her hands, her hair falling forward. "This is what I feared, my life falling apart because of you." Thomas reached for her, then stopped, his voice low. "I'll make it right. Give me a chance." Zoe looked up, tears spilling. "I need time, Thomas. Space, please." The pain in her eyes was unbearable. Thomas nodded, his face tight with resolve. "Okay, but this isn't over. I'm not giving up on us." He left, the door clicking shut behind him. Zoe sank back, emotionally spent, the tabloid's words echoing. Charity case. Gold digger. Her world was unraveling, and the man she'd begun to care for was both the cause and the only one fighting to hold it together. The morning light filtered through Zoe's apartment, casting shadows across her tear-streaked face. At 25, her beauty remained striking despite the turmoil. Her slender frame slumped on the couch, her long, wavy hair, a tangled cascade framing her pale features. The tabloid scandal had cost her job at the clinic, and her phone, now silenced, bore the scars of relentless notifications. Thomas's departure last night, his promise to fight for them, echoed in her mind, but doubt anchored her heart. Could a billionaire's love survive the chasm between their worlds? Her father's gentle hand on her shoulder offered little comfort. "You'll get through this, sweetheart," he said, his voice strained by his own heart condition. Zoe nodded, but the weight of her unraveling life pressed harder. Her phone buzzed with a voicemail from Lucy at the diner. "Zoe, you need to see the morning news. It's about you and Knight. Call me." Zoe's stomach churned. "More headlines?" She hesitated, then opened her laptop, her fingers trembling as she navigated to a news site. There, on the screen, was Thomas, his handsome features composed under studio lights, his tailored white shirt accentuating his sophisticated air at 30. The headline read, "Billionaire defends mystery woman in heartfelt interview." Zoe's breath caught as she hit play, the interviewer's voice filling the room. "Mr. Knight, rumors are swirling about your new romance with a waitress. Care to comment?" The camera zoomed in on Thomas, his gray eyes steady. "Her name is Zoe Moore," he said, his voice firm. "We met after a minor car accident. That fender bender was the best thing that ever happened to me." Zoe's heart skipped. The interviewer pressed. "And the claims she's after your fortune?" Thomas's jaw tightened. "Anyone who knows Zoe would laugh at that. She's the most genuine, hardworking person I've met. She refused my help with her father's medical bills because she didn't want our relationship to be about money." Zoe stared, speechless, as Thomas continued, his sincerity disarming. "In fact, I'm the lucky one. Zoe's shown me what matters: community, family, integrity." He leaned forward, his voice softening. "I'm not letting her go without a fight." The interviewer shifted gears. "You've announced a new foundation for community centers, inspired by her volunteer work?" Thomas nodded. Zoe opened my eyes to the impact of grassroots organizations. "This isn't about her. It's about doing what's right." Zoe's eyes welled up. her father watching silently beside her, a faint smile on his lips. The interview ended, but the impact lingered. Zoe's phone lit up with a text from Dr. Williams at the clinic. "We'd like you back whenever you're ready. Call me." She frowned, suspecting Thomas's influence, but a follow-up message clarified. "No money changed hands. Night simply highlighted your value to us." Zoe's emotions swirled. Relief, gratitude, but also unease. Thomas was reshaping her world, and she wasn't sure she could keep up. A knock at the door broke her reverie. It was Patricia, Thomas's assistant, her crisp suit a stark contrast to the apartment's worn decor. "Ms. Moore?" "Mr. Knight asked me to deliver this," she said, handing Zoe a white envelope before leaving. Inside was a handwritten letter, Thomas's elegant script filling the page. "Zoe, you were right. I've tried to fix things with money and influence, forgetting that some problems need more. I fell for you because you see me, not my wealth. My world is part of me, just as your compassion is part of you. I'm not asking you to change, only to see the man who's hopelessly in love with you. Meet me at the community center tonight at 7 p.m. If you're willing to give us a chance, not as a billionaire and a waitress, but as Thomas and Zoe. The foundation is set, not for you, but because you showed me what matters. All my love, Thomas." Zoe read it twice, her heart pounding. His words struck a chord, balancing respect for her independence with his undeniable feelings. She glanced at her father, who nodded encouragingly. "Go, Zoe, hear him out." By evening, she stood outside the community center, her wavy hair catching the golden hues of dusk, her simple sweater hugging her slender frame. The building was quiet, its faded brick a familiar comfort. She found Thomas in the garden, sitting on a weathered bench, his jeans and casual shirt a far cry from his usual sophistication, yet his handsome features still commanded attention. He stood when he saw her, hope and nerves flickering in his gray eyes. "You came," he said, his voice soft. Zoe stepped closer, her green eyes searching his. "Your letter was persuasive," Thomas smiled, a tentative warmth spreading across his face. "I meant every word." Zoe took a deep breath, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "I've been thinking about us, about all the reasons this shouldn't work. Our backgrounds, our lives, the chaos." His smile faltered, but she continued. "Then I realized those are just circumstances. They're not who we are," hope reignited in Thomas's eyes. "That's what I've been trying to say." Zoe moved closer, her hair brushing her cheek. "I was so afraid of losing myself in your world. I almost lost something more, the chance to love and be loved for who I am." She reached for his hand, her touch tentative but sure. "I'm falling in love with you, Thomas. Not the CEO, but the man who stayed for pie, who helped my dad, who sees me." Thomas pulled her close, his arms enveloping her, his breath warm against her hair. "We're doing this then? Really doing this?" Zoe nodded, her voice firm. "It won't be easy. Tabloids, differences, all of it." He met her gaze, his eyes serious. "I don't want easy. I want you." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the garden in twilight, Thomas leaned down, his lips brushing hers in a kiss that sealed their pact. Zoe felt the world shift, not into his or hers, but into theirs. A fragile, beautiful possibility they'd fight for together. The community center garden, bathed in the soft glow of string lights, felt like a new beginning for Zoe. At 25, her beauty was radiant as she walked hand in hand with Thomas, her slender frame swaying slightly, her long, wavy hair catching the evening breeze. Their kiss under the twilight had sealed a promise to face their differences together. Yet, as Zoe glanced at Thomas, his handsome features softened by the moment. A quiet fear lingered. Could their love, so fiercely declared, withstand the pressures of their divergent worlds? At 30, Thomas carried his sophistication effortlessly, even in a casual jacket that hugged his athletic build. But his gray eyes held a determination that steadied her. Weeks passed, and Zoe threw herself into nursing school, her mornings filled with lectures and scrubs that replaced her diner apron. Her wavy hair, often tied back, framed her focused expression as she pored over textbooks, driven by the dream she'd once abandoned. Thomas, meanwhile, became an unexpected fixture at the community center, trading boardroom suits for jeans and volunteering with a zeal that surprised even himself. Zoe watched him one afternoon, his tall frame crouched beside a group of children, helping them plant seedlings in the garden. His laughter, rich and unguarded, drew smiles from the kids and a warmth in her chest. "You're not half bad at this," she teased, joining him, her hair glinting in the sunlight. "Not bad," Thomas grinned, wiping dirt from his hands, his sophistication replaced by a boyish charm. "I'm a natural," Zoe laughed, but her amusement faded when a tabloid headline flashed on her phone. Left open on a nearby bench. "Knight's charity stunt continues at local center." The article hinted their relationship was a publicity ploy, and though Zoe knew better, the words stung. She tucked the phone away, but Thomas noticed, his eyes narrowing. "Ignore it," he said, his voice firm. "They'll tire of us eventually." Zoe nodded, but the doubt lingered. His world of scrutiny was a constant shadow. That evening, at her apartment, Zoe prepared dinner, her slender fingers chopping vegetables with practiced ease. Thomas arrived, his leather jacket a nod to his attempt at blending into her life, carrying a bottle of wine that probably cost more than her rent. As they ate, her father, looking healthier since his new medication, regaled Thomas with factory stories. Zoe caught Thomas listening intently, his genuine interest a stark contrast to the calculating CEO she'd first met. Later, as they washed dishes, she overheard a call he took in the living room. "No, I'm not signing off on that merger," he said sharply. "It'll cost jobs. Find another way." He hung up, unaware of Zoe's presence, and she realized he'd prioritized ethics over profit, a choice that mirrored her values. "You didn't have to do that," she said, stepping into the room, her hair loose and framing her face. Thomas turned, surprised. "Do what?" "Turn down a deal. I heard you." He shrugged, his handsome features softening. "It wasn't right for the company, or me." Zoe's heart swelled. This was the man she was falling for, not just the billionaire. Yet, when he joined her at the community center the next day, a group of his wealthy friends arrived, their designer clothes clashing with the center's modest charm. One, a sharp-tongued woman named Claire, raised an eyebrow at Zoe. "So, you're the one keeping Thomas from his real responsibilities," she said, her tone dripping with condescension. Zoe bristled, her green eyes flashing, but Thomas stepped in, his voice cold. "Zoe's the reason I'm seeing what matters. You should try it sometime." Claire's smile faltered, and the group left soon after, but the encounter left Zoe shaken. "They don't get it," she said later, sitting with Thomas on the center's rooftop, the city skyline sprawling below. Her hair danced in the wind, and Thomas tucked a strand behind her ear, his touch gentle. "They don't need to," he said. "I choose you, Zoe, every day." His words were a balm, but the gap between their worlds felt wider than ever. A week later, Zoe faced a new challenge, a nursing exam that clashed with a center event Thomas had planned to fund. She studied late, her eyes heavy, her hair pulled into a messy bun. Thomas found her at the diner, where she'd picked up an extra shift, her apron stained from a long day. "You're killing yourself," he said, his sophisticated air softened by concern as he slid into a booth. Zoe sighed, her slender frame sagging. "I have to. School, Dad, the center, it's all I've got." Thomas reached for her hand. "You've got me too, let me help." She pulled back, wary. Not with money, Thomas. He nodded, respecting her boundaries. Then let me be here. Whatever you need. His presence became her anchor. He drove her to classes, quizzed her on medical terms, and even helped at the center when she was swamped. One night, as they painted a mural with the kids, Zoe watched him, paint smudged on his cheek, laughing as a child flicked a brush at him. Her heart ached with a truth she could no longer deny. She loved him, not despite their differences, but because of how he embraced hers. "What?" Thomas asked, catching her stare, his gray eyes twinkling. Zoe smiled, her hair glowing under the center's lights. "You're not what I expected either." As they locked up the center, Thomas pulled her close, his lips finding hers in a kiss that felt like a vow. "We're building something real, Zoe," he whispered. She nodded, but a tabloid photographer's flash from across the street shattered the moment, a reminder of the world still watching. Zoe's resolve hardened. She'd fight for this, for them, but the path ahead would test their love in ways neither could predict. The Golden Spoon Diner glowed under a canopy of fairy lights, its usual hustle replaced by the warmth of a private celebration. Zoe, at 25, stood radiant in a simple white dress that hugged her slender frame, her long, wavy hair cascading in soft waves, catching the soft gleam of the lights. Tonight was their engagement party, a milestone she'd never imagined when she'd crashed into Thomas Knight's Maserati months ago. At 30, Thomas moved through the crowd with his signature sophistication, his tailored navy suit accentuating his handsome features. But his gray eyes sought only her. The tabloid flash from the community center lingered in Zoe's mind, a reminder of the challenges they'd faced. Yet here they were, surrounded by friends and family from both their worlds, now intertwining like threads in a tapestry. The diner was transformed, tables rearranged, a small dance floor where children from the newly renamed Moore Community Center, honoring Zoe's late mother, giggled under Mrs. Geller's watchful eye. Zoe's father, his health restored after a successful surgery, funded by insurance Thomas had discreetly helped navigate, chatted animatedly with Thomas's business partner, his laughter a sound Zoe cherished. Lucy, the diner's owner, bustled about, ensuring the buffet of meatloaf and apple pie, Thomas's favorites, was perfect. Zoe adjusted her dress, her heart swelling as she caught Thomas's gaze across the room. He excused himself from Dr. Henderson, his family physician, and joined her, his arm slipping around her waist. "Having second thoughts?" he teased, his voice low, his smile lighting up his chiseled face. Zoe leaned into him, her hair brushing his shoulder. "About marrying you? Never. About hosting our engagement party in a diner? Maybe a few," Thomas laughed, the sound rich and grounding. "It's perfect. This is where it started, where I fell for a waitress who wasn't dazzled by my car." Zoe's lips twitched. "I was a little dazzled by the car," he grinned triumphantly. "Knew it." Their journey hadn't been easy. Zoe's return to nursing school had been grueling. Her nights spent studying while Thomas restructured his company to prioritize social impact, inspired by her passion for community. The tabloids hadn't relented entirely, spitting out occasional stories that questioned her motives. But Thomas's public defense and their united front had dulled their sting. His board had been skeptical, some whispering that Zoe was a distraction. But Thomas's unwavering commitment, turning down lucrative deals that clashed with her values, had silenced them. Zoe, too, had struggled, learning to navigate his world of galas and private jets without losing her identity. Yet, each challenge had forged them closer, their differences becoming strengths. As they mingled, Zoe caught her father watching them, his eyes bright with pride. He'd been right. Love wasn't about sameness, but about complementing each other. Thomas, sensing her gaze, squeezed her hand. "Your dad's planning to school me at chess later," he said, his tone playful. Zoe laughed. He's ruthless. You're doomed. Thomas's eyes softened. I'm already doomed. For you. Her heart fluttered. The same thrill she'd felt when he'd first kissed her in the community center garden. The center itself was a testament to their shared vision. Thomas's foundation had funded a new roof, modern computers, and expanded programs, but he'd ensured Zoe's role was advisory, respecting her need for independence. She'd poured her heart into it, balancing school and volunteering, while Thomas learned to wield a paintbrush alongside the kids, his sophisticated air comically at odds with paint-splattered jeans. Tonight, the children's handmade decorations adorned the diner, a symbol of the community they were building together. As the evening unfolded, Lucy pulled Zoe aside, her eyes twinkling. That man of yours tried serving coffee earlier. Spilled it everywhere. Zoe chuckled, picturing Thomas's earnest attempts. He's learning. Lucy patted her arm. He's learning you, honey. That's what counts. Zoe glanced at Thomas, now dancing with a giggling Zoe from the center, his laughter echoing. He was no longer just the billionaire. She saw the man who made her father laugh, who embraced her world with open-hearted effort. Later, they slipped away to the diner's back patio, the city lights sprawling below like a sea of stars. Zoe's hair danced in the cool night air, and Thomas wrapped his arms around her, his warmth a steady anchor. Penny, for your thoughts? He asked, his breath warm against her ear. Zoe smiled, leaning back against his chest. I'm thinking about fate. How one rainy day changed everything. Thomas shook his head, his voice soft. Not fate, choice. We chose each other, Zoe, every day since that accident. She turned to face him, her green eyes meeting his gray ones. You're right. And I choose you again, tomorrow, the next day, every day. He grinned, his handsome features alight with joy. Even when I'm an arrogant CEO, Zoe teased. Even then, as long as you choose me when I'm a stubborn nurse. He pulled her close, his lips capturing hers in a kiss that felt like a vow, the city humming around them. As they rejoined the party, Zoe marveled at their journey, from a fender bender to this moment, surrounded by love. Challenges lay ahead, her nursing exams, his corporate battles, the inevitable tabloid whispers. But they'd face them together. Thomas caught her eye, raising a glass in a silent toast, and Zoe knew, with a certainty that warmed her soul, that their collision had been no accident. It was the start of something beautiful, a love that didn't erase their differences, but wove them into a story uniquely theirs. What a journey Zoe and Thomas took us on, from a rainy crash to a love that defied all odds. We hope their story warmed your heart and left you believing in the power of unexpected connections. What did you think? Did their choices resonate with you? Or would you have navigated their worlds differently? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and let us know where you're listening from. A huge thank you for joining us today. Your support keeps these stories alive. Don't forget to subscribe and share to spread the love. We can't wait to bring you another tale of passion and destiny, so stay tuned for more. Until next time, keep chasing your own happily ever after.